We got some Die Hard news, and it's a box office bonanza with some crazy, incredible news. All that and more next on Movie Emporium's News of the Day. What's up, guys? Welcome to Movie Emporium's News of the Day for September 4th, 2018, where we take stories from around the world of movies, break them down, and tell you about them one by one. As you know, I've been doing the news of the day since Friday. Not really been much going on. It's been a holiday weekend, so I hope your Labor Day went well. I figured maybe take a day off, put a couple of videos. I put up some new reviews, one for the first episode of our flashback review, which was One Crazy Summer, and also some other movies that I took a look at, which is stuff like Little Stranger and Kin, and so on and so forth. So check those out. Comment below. Tell us what you think. As always, remember to rate, subscribe, check us out on YouTube, Audio Boom, Facebook, and Twitter. But with that, we'll go ahead and get into our first news story, which is, and of course, it's the box office. It was a pretty quiet but pretty significant box office weekend. Number one was Crazy Rich Asians, which came in at $22.1 million with a drop of only 10.9%. Guys, that is insane. For a movie in its third week that only dropped 10% when it dropped 5% the week before, this movie has extreme profitable legs. Not only is it getting good word of mouth, but it's already over $110 million for the week or for the total run so far. It's going to go anywhere between 150, 160, maybe 180, and that's crazily impressive. For a movie that wasn't even supposed to do very well, was given a huge Netflix deal, but turned down, and now we see it at $110 million in only 3 weeks for a movie like this. I mean, you got to give it to John Cho, you got to give it to Michelle Yeoh, you got to give it to all the actors involved. I mean, they created a phenomenon. This is this year's The Help. I mean, it's just a movie that it touched everyone. It was a lightning strike in a bottle. It was people that worked very hard on it, and they're reaping the rewards. But yeah, congratulations to them. So, I mean, that's not the only big news. So we'll actually get into a little bit more later about Crazy Rich Asians. But number two was The Meg with $10.5 million. Another pretty impressive gross so far of $120 million. It went up into the top 10 of the all-time summer box office for this year. We're definitely getting a sequel now. It did really well. I mean, it cost $130 million to make, but you know, after the international gross, which is probably $400 or $500 million, I say that's a win. It's another success for Jason Statham. So you know, congratulations to him. But like I said, bring on more Meg. But with that, number three was Mission Impossible Fallout. Speaking of another hit, this movie is on pace to outpace Mission Impossible 2 if it hasn't already. It grossed $7.3 million for a total take of $204 million. I'm excited by this because Mission Impossible never makes the $400 or $500 million route outside of the international box office. But this just guarantees we're going to get a Mission Impossible 7. There's no reason they wouldn't make it. This is one of the biggest Tom Cruise vehicles on the market, and the movies get bigger, they get better, they somehow get crazier. So the fact that we got one for $200 million, I would say that's pretty impressive. So number four was Searching. It did bomb business. I thought this movie was going to be bigger than it was, but it only made $6 million for the weekend. Guys, if you haven't seen Searching, definitely check out my review, but definitely go see this movie. It's one of the best of the year. John Cho is amazing in it. The whole idea about using the computer to search for your daughter and just using that as the format of the movie is pretty impressive. Like I said, there are some issues, but you can see that in the review. But $6 million, big bomb, so whatever. But number five was Operation Finale. It made $6 million. It's about on par. It's only made about $7 million. It's not going to make its money back. It's going to probably do maybe $15, $20 million. It kind of sucks because Chris Weitz directed it, and he's a pretty talented director, writer. But I thought the movie was decent, but it's just not going to do very well, so it'll probably drop off pretty quickly. But number six was Holding Strong was Disney's Christopher Robin, which it made about $5.1 million for a gross of about $85 million. Not a huge hit, but not a terrible hit. I mean, it was a good movie. It probably could have made $100 million, but the way this summer box office has been going, it's just been so chaotic that a movie like this was always going to go under the radar. But $85 million, I think that is pretty successful for its type of movie. So, but number seven was Alpha with $4.5 million for a gross total of $27 million. Not great, but it's Alpha. Nobody was really expecting much from it. The Happy Time Murders made about $4.4 million. Complete bomb, dropped off 50% at 17 million. Like I said, pretty not great movie, but we'll move on. Black Klansman at number nine, $4 million for a gross total of $38 million. Not bad for a Spike Lee movie. I wish the movie did more, but $40 million is respectable for kind of movie that it's conveying. So, number 10, Mile 22. Terrible movie. Made $3.5 million for $31 million. Going to be a huge bomb for Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg, but movie wasn't good, so you get what you pay for. But that's pretty much it on the box office. Like I said, it was quiet, but it had some significant ideas behind it, or significant grosses with Crazy Rich Asians and so on and so forth. And actually, let's go on to our next news story, which is Crazy Rich Asians. Now, with Crazy Rich Asians making as much money as it has, it's doing something that hasn't been done in for almost a decade, actually since the proposal of Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock came out. It's going on to be one of the highest grossing romantic comedies of the last decade, if maybe not of all time. Like I said, it's going to do $150, $160 million and maybe do more than that because we're hitting the slow season in September. But I'm happy for these guys because they're doing something that they're proud of. It's showing, and the people behind it are profiting in a respect of they're able to make more movies, that we make more lucrative franchise. And I'm just proud of the fact that I shouldn't say I'm proud because it doesn't really affect me in any way, but I'm just happy to see that a movie about a minority like an Asian culture is getting this kind of spin. It's kind of like My Big Fat Greek Wedding in a way where it keeps rolling and rolling and rolling until the point where it completely envelops society. It's going to be in the top 10 of most talked about things of the year. And that's awesome, good for them. I mean, you can't really fault them for doing what they did, but I think that's exciting, and it just shows that we can get good movies, good romantic, sweet movies, without breaking the 100, $200 million budget. So congratulations to them. I wish them more success. I will definitely go see the sequel when it comes out. I enjoyed the movie. So, but with that, we'll move on to our next story, which is. You guys know that I'm a huge Pixar nut. I love Pixar. I love everything about it. Yeah, it's had some issues in the last year with John Lasseter, kind of depressing. And Disney animation has kind of had a resurgence with stuff like Frozen and Wreck-It Ralph and Big Hero 6. But a story like this, and the story basically plays out that Incredibles 2, which we all knew was going to be a huge movie, it's based off a very popular original movie that came out in 2004, I remember right. Directed by Brad Bird, about a superhero family. You all know what it's about. Um, the idea that movies like this can gross this much money, because the story basically reads that The Incredibles has done $1.1 billion, so it's done almost as much as Frozen at the box office. But now it's the most successful animated movie of all time, grossing over $600 million. I mean, we thought it was crazy when Finding Dory, which came out last year, made $500 million. The Incredibles 2 is so massive that it's almost going to beat out things like Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War. I mean, this is how big this movie is, and it has every right to be this massive because it's a huge, popular, beloved franchise. And, congratulations to Brad Bird and Pixar because they created a wonderful movie. I enjoy it. I think it's fantastic for what they were going for. There's a lot of people that had issues with it. That's fine. You're allowed to your opinion. But to me, I thought it was a perfect sequel. I think it's the best sequel since Toy Story 3, maybe Toy Story 2. It's definitely better than Finding Dory that came out last year, even though I enjoyed it. Because I enjoy Pixar movies, but stuff like Brave and The Good Dinosaur, they're lesser films. But yeah, so I mean, $600 million. That's insane. And I don't usually shout out like other podcasts and stuff like that because I always want to promote my stuff. But I was involved with this thing called the Summer Movie Wager, which is through Slash Filmcast, and they do a thing where you predict the box office for the summer. And I predicted that, of course, Avengers: Infinity War was going to be the top grossing movie of the summer. It runs from when Avengers: Infinity War came out to Labor Day, which is then today. Basically, the last day was yesterday, Monday. And I basically put Incredibles 2 is going to be number 2 at the box office because everybody thought, oh no, it's going to be Deadpool or it's going to be Solo or it's going to be, these other movies that were going to come out. And I'm like, if we think about this, it's been 14 years. I mean, you just look at the trajectory of any movie that's been out. Look at Force Awakens. 19 years since the original had come out. We're talking about 14 years since the original Incredibles came out. That was already going to guarantee a huge box office because people have been waiting for this movie for God knows how long. I've been waiting for it forever. They've been putting out all these mediocre movies Pixar has, and it's fun to see that they're able to pull this off. But I put Incredibles as number 2 because I knew it was going to make a boatload of money. Did I think it was going to make $600 million? No, I thought it was going to do like 400 or 500 million. But I just think that this proves that Brad Bird is not only a genius of a filmmaker, but Pixar really does have that magic that a lot of companies don't. You don't see this in like DreamWorks outside of a Shrek or maybe How to Train Your Dragon. Even How to Train Your Dragon it's not a successful franchise outside. I mean, it's successful, but it's not this successful. So, I mean, hopefully this leads into another Incredibles 3. Hopefully they don't wait another 14 years, but if they do, we'll be ready for it and it'll make a lot of money. I mean, heck, look at, like I said, Force Awakens, $900 million, and that was just 19 years of waiting. So these types of things people want, and this shows that people want. So I know that's a long-winded discussion, but I just wanted to point that out, that I kind of predicted that this movie would make this much. Did I think it would make close to what Avengers: Infinity War made? Absolutely not, but as we see. So, but with that, we'll move on to our next story, which is Norman Reedus, famous for The Walking Dead, famous for Boondock Saints, is going to be in the upcoming game Death Stranding. Was just asked about Marvel. He wanted to do a Marvel movie. What's interesting is not the one character he wants to play, but is the other character that he has an interest in playing. The first character, of course, is Ghost Rider. Big non. I mean, we kind of figured that would be a character he would play. We had the Latino Ghost Rider character. I don't know what his name is. I apologize, but he was in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series, and then of course you had the Nicolas Cage garbage that came out. But he'd be perfect as a Johnny Blaze. I think he would fit the perfect role of playing that type of character because he looks like a character that could be Ghost Rider. But the interesting thing that he kind of wanted to play was Silver Surfer. Okay, Silver Surfer sounds interesting. I think I could go for that. I mean, that'd be an interesting take on Silver Surfer because it's not something you would expect him to play. But if they added him as a CG character like what they did with Thanos, I think it could be an interesting role for him in general. I mean, he's the reason that Walking Dead is so successful, outside of Andrew Lincoln and so on and so forth, and just the movie or the TV series in general. But him playing Silver Surfer, it's never it's going to happen. I mean, it's just a theory of what he wants to do. But could it happen? Possibly. Norman Reedus is a hot property, so we'll see. Like I said, I can see him more as Ghost Rider, but doing Silver Surfer, heck, bring it on, I guess. But with that, we'll move on. Quentin Tarantino, famous director, doing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood right now. The backdrop of Sharon Tate's murders. It's been talked about for a while now that he wants to do like a R-rated Star Trek movie, which is cool. I think it could be interesting to go to the depths because I don't think, like it says in the article, I don't think they want to go for like profanity and sexual nudity, which maybe they could do with, I don't know. I don't think that's what they're going for. What I thought was interesting is Karl Urban was asked about the R-rated Star Trek movie, and from comic book or Heroic Hollywood, he had a couple quotes, and I just want to read them for you. So you shouldn't worry that it is going to be full of obscenity and stuff. He wants an R rating to really make the beats of consequence land. It allows some breath, gives away some leeway to do that. To me, that was always one of the things I loved about the DeForest Kelley, what he did. he would actually capture the horror of space. I was personally delighted he was not only a Star Trek fan, but also interested in working with our cast. It's not only a new story, but he is just one of those filmmakers that has a very unique and specific vision, and he totally utilizes the camera to tell the story. I think he would make a great Star Trek movie. I really do. So, what he's basically presenting is he wants to make a movie about the consequences of their actions in space. There's always been this weird connection with Star Trek where you always wonder what the things they're doing are affecting the world around them. And when there was another article I read about how he wanted to show kind of what would happen if you get shot out into space. I mean, you always see like in the Star Trek that J.J. Abrams did, they get shot into space, but you never really get to see the effects of it. And I know that's kind of gory and graphic, but these types of consequences, they affect people. People die and it affects people. You don't really see that in Star Trek a lot of times, maybe outside of Spock dying or Kirk in the rebooted series. When people die, it's graphic, it's painful, it's hard to watch, and I don't know. I think Star Trek could use something like this to propel it up. I mean, you look at Discovery, I haven't seen the show, but it's a very mature version of Star Trek or Star Trek. Sorry, I do that a lot. But it uses language, it uses violence, it uses mature storytelling, but it does it in a way that is not offensive to the property itself. Would Gene Roddenberry be upset by this? I don't know. It's kind of the same thing with J.R.R. Tolkien. When Peter Jackson did the R-rated director's cut of the last Hobbit movie, The Battle of Five Armies. But it would be interesting. And Quentin Tarantino is not subtle about what he does and what he says and what he feels, but I think it could be fascinating to see him take a real mature property that would involve maybe the cast of the rebooted Star Trek franchise and put it into a different layer to kind of show that consequences have or actions have consequences, and they're not always good consequences. I mean, I think it could be fascinating. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Do you have any interest in seeing a Quentin Tarantino R-rated Star Trek movie? I would. So tell us what you think in the comments below. But we'll go ahead and move on to our last news story, which is. So I know we've been going kind of long. It's some news stories happened during the weekend. I feel like I've been trying to explain more to you guys, and I apologize for the length, but I like these types of things. I like talking about news, about movies, and so on and so forth. What I don't like talking about is movies of franchises that I feel are ruined. Okay? I don't feel like Star Wars is ruined. I don't care what anybody feels about the prequels. They're not great, but they have interesting ideas behind them. The Hobbit franchise, or the Lord of the Rings Middle Earth franchise, I think is stepped down from what it was. I think Lord of the Rings is probably one of the greatest achievements in film outside of the original Star Wars trilogy. I mean, then you look at The Matrix. It's just you see what's going on. The biggest thing that pisses me off the most is Die Hard. I don't care what anybody says about Die Hard with the Die Hard 2, Die Harder. I don't care what anybody says about Die Hard with a Vengeance. Die Hard 2, Die Harder, and Die Hard with a Vengeance are a perfect trilogy. They're not the greatest trilogy of all time. I would probably go with Lord of the Rings maybe on that, or Back to the Future. But they call Die Hard 2 a terrible movie. It's not a terrible movie. It's directed by Renny Harlin. Yes, Renny Harlin's a terrible director, but it's a fun movie. It has William Sadler in it. It has, I think, Tony Todd. I mean, all these people in it. And it's just fun. It's set in Washington, D.C. It's snowy. I mean, it's just, I enjoy it. I think it's a good movie. I think Die Hard with a Vengeance rivals Die Hard. Die Hard is always going to be the perfect action movie, contrary to what people think and I think. But Die Hard with a Vengeance is fun. Jeremy Irons is amazing in the role. His role as the bad guy is Simon. Samuel Jackson is fun. He works off Bruce Willis's John McClane character, and they were in Pulp Fiction together. I don't think they actually worked together in the movie, but I just thought the movie was fun. It was set in New York. It was a great robbery story and so on and so forth. And then we got Live Free and Die Hard and A Good Day to Die Hard, and then that franchise just went. Bruce Willis stopped caring. Everything went to shit. It was just those movies were terrible. I don't think they were not John McClane movies. They were not Die Hard movies. They were spin-offs of something that you took a poop in the toilet or something. That's a stupid analogy, but you know what I mean. They shit all over the franchise. And then for the longest time now, it's been about 5 or 6 years, and it talks about in the report, they're talking about doing a prequel movie where Bruce Willis will appear as the old John McClane, and then there will be a young McClane. Guys, come on. This is the stupidest thing since anything. The Good Day Die Hard was bad enough as it was, and I can almost get around Live Free or Die Hard. It has its moments, but it's still pretty terrible. I like Timothy Olyphant, but so they announced the title of the new Die Hard movie. It's going to be called McClane, and I know it's a title, but this is so stupid. The whole idea of Die Hard to begin with was about this cop who was not super. He was just a normal cop from New York who ends up having to rescue his family from the great villain of Alan Rickman's character. And it shows him that he's a nobody who becomes a somebody, and then he becomes like really well known throughout the rest of the trilogy or the rest of the movies. But I don't want to see a prequel about John McClane. I don't care about a prequel about John McClane. I think it's stupid. You know what's gonna happen? They're gonna turn him into a superhero, which negates the whole Die Hard franchise to begin with. And I know this is a title to a movie, but I feel like I need to rant about this, which because this news of the day thing's early. It's in its early stages. I feel like I should give some context about what I feel about this movie, and this just harpens up the fact that this is the most unnecessary thing I've ever seen since maybe the Star Wars prequels. I mean, that's a whole different story. You can watch my Trench Run podcast about that or listen to it or whatever. But yeah, I think this is dumb. I get so angry whenever I hear about this movie in general. And Bruce Willis is just there to make money. But that's what you do in Hollywood. You make money, and sometimes you do it for good. Sometimes you do it for bad. Sometimes you die a hero. Sometimes you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Or you watch Slender Man, and then you just want to kill yourself. Not really, but you know what I mean. So, but that's it on that story. It makes me angry. What do you guys think about it? Do you even care? Which I know a lot of you guys don't because you'll probably see the movie. I mean, I'll probably go see the movie because I have to review it for the stupid pot, for the Movie Emporium. But that's it. That's it on the news stories. There's some great stories, some not great stories. What do you guys like about them? Is there anything that you did like about anything I talked about? Comment below. Definitely tell us what you think. As always, if you like what you see, remember to rate, subscribe, check us out on YouTube, Audioboom, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also email at nlapolo113@gmail.com. Like I said, check out the flashback review that I did for One Crazy Summer. I'm going to make that. I'm not sure if I'm going to do 2 episodes a week or 1 episode a week. It's based all on my work schedule. I'm doing this on top of another job. So, but also check out, the reviews I did on Kin and Searching and all the 60 other reviews that I've done. So, but with that, thank you so much for checking us out on News of the Day for September 4th, 2018. But with that, we'll go ahead and see you tomorrow. Peace.